Okay, so I'd like to first begin by welcoming everyone to our second meeting of the year. I feel that we made meaningful progress since our last meeting in September, and I want to thank you guys again for your continued engagement and your commitment to this important work. I want to first begin this meeting by doing roll call and attendance. So I'll start there. Commissioner Watkins. And you can just say aye, yes, here, just to confirm your attendance. Commissioner Scroggins?
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Farrakhan?
Here.
Commissioner Brown?
I'm here. Sorry, I'm on my phone Wi-Fi and I just letting everybody know I do have a hard stop around like 5.
Okay. I can't see everyone because I have our spreadsheet up. So if you can just say here, yes, yay, nay. Commissioner Torch? Commissioner Jefferson?
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Savory?
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Rouse?
I'm here.
Commissioner Bryan?
Here.
Commissioner Sheridan? Commissioner Vitaliano? Commissioner Garbarino? Commissioner Handy?
Here.
Commissioner Slezik?
Here.
Thank you. Thank you all. And I'll turn the meeting over to your chair.
Howdy, everyone. If you are here and you didn't get a chance to unmute, please feel free to in the chat to say, I'm here. I know we're all navigating different virtual systems. But just good evening. Thank you so much for, to echo Ashley's words, coming together for our second ever meeting. We've got some good, juicy things to chew through, I think, today. And so we're going to have a pretty robust presentation of updates from last time and sort of the progress we've made around the grant making pathways. And then our goal is to be able to get any feedback, hopefully reach some consensus so that we can keep moving forward in getting the grant application for community grants out the door so that we can start getting applications in and then eventually make some decisions and disperse some funding. So one thing to help us reground in where we were when we left off in September is we need to approve the minutes. So that was, thank you, Ashley, for attaching everything to the calendar invitation. And can I get a motion from someone to approve the minutes from our September 11th meeting?
Oh, you're on mute. I motion to approve the minutes.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Can I get a second?
I second that motion.
Phenomenal. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to assume there's a lot of
Aye.
Thank you. Thumbs up on screens. Any opposed? All right. Hearing none, we're going to assume that that motion carries unanimously. If I misrepresented your vote and you were actually opposed to it, please in the chat make, I don't know, a sad face saying I'm opposed to to the minutes being approved. But otherwise, Ashley, thank you for creating them and making sure that we're keeping good documentation of what we're doing together. All right. Fun stuff. We're going to go right into it. I'd like to turn it back over to you for some staff updates about what's been happening at the county.
Okay. So you guys received the district map through email. And I kind of just wanted to briefly discuss that. I don't know if you guys noticed that, as the county moves forward with redistricting and some of those district boundaries may change. So member representation may change moving forward. But these adjustments aren't yet finalized. So I kind of just wanted to just bring awareness to the map. And just let you guys know that we'll revisit that topic during your reappointment process, just to ensure that each commissioner's district information is accurate and reflects any approved changes made. So that's the first thing. Secondly, I wanted to just make you guys aware of an event coming this weekend. You guys are always welcome to attend. As you all know, your participation does help strengthen outreach and just our continued connection with residents. And it also helps to just make sure that we are ensuring equitable awareness and capacity building for all our community organizations and small businesses. And that's it on my side.
Great, thank you. I think the Damn Jam flyer is in the calendar appointment. If you can make it, it'd be fantastic. So the next thing on our agenda, we're on number 3 now, is looking at some commission documents. And thanks again, team, for preparing those. So everyone here is an adult and a professional, so we're not going to read through them, but it's very helpful, the documents there's a roles and responsibilities document about the CRRC, and also a service commitment pledge. And the goal there is really just making sure that we are all on the same page and clear about the expectations of upholding transparency and accountability throughout this process as good stewards of the program, especially as we really launch this. So I want to hold for any questions that anyone had about the roles and responsibilities or about the service commitment pledge. And so far, hearing no questions, I would say the county's asked all of us to please sign those and return them by tomorrow. So just for clarification, how would you like us to submit the signed copies? By email?
Yes, I've actually started receiving both documents from some of the commissioners. So thank you for that. But yes, you can email them to me.
Phenomenal.
And quick question. I know there was a place to sign on the commitment pledge. I think it was the roles and responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
Did I miss something?
Oh, I can see there's no place to sign.
Yeah. So
the commitment pledge is the one that you should email. The roles and
okay, just that one.
responsibilities is just
Okay.
informative. Yes.
Okay.
Done. I was going to ask Ashley, do you have DocuSign? Can you send this through DocuSign?
I don't. But if you want, you can add an electronic signature. That's fine if you have that. But we don't. I don't even think that's something we use with the county.
Right, but when you use DocuSign, you could then email it to yourself and then have it be a PDF and then email it to Ashley. So it doesn't have to go directly.
Thanks, Rashawn.
That's a great question from Louise in the chat. Do non-voting members also need to sign the pledge?
No.
Okay. So if you already have, thank you for being so on top of it. And if, like me, you haven't yet, well, let's make sure that they're all in by close of business on Friday. Great. Thanks, everyone. All right. We are moving robustly through our agenda and creating a lot of room for some great discussion. So could we please go to the slide on subcommittees? So I want to just say a really big thank you to everybody who has already taken action on subcommittees, to Gabby and Matt and Tikoya about doing grant making, really working through that application process and all the considerations, to Heather, who gave us an incredible overview of the services available in the county for folks who are struggling with housing insecurity, and to Omar and Salisa for really kicking it off with workforce development. It's been great to see this coming, and I'm really encouraged by the way that as a group, we're trying to learn more about all the priority areas of the fund and what's already happening in the county so that we can be really well informed when it comes to considering applications. So if you forgot maybe which subject area we all were matched up to, please refer to this wonderful slide. And then just a note that ex officio members, if you want to reach out to commissioners or commissioners to ex officio members, we're all on the same team here. But our goal is to set up these meetings, sort of informational meetings, ahead of our next meeting in after the new year. And the goal is to help us as commissioners understand what's already happening in the county so that we can think about gaps that exist or also successes and strengths that maybe we could build on. And if for any reason you're like, I'd like to actually switch and be on a different committee, or I'm interested in more than one, the goal here is to align our areas of interest and expertise with what we know are priorities for the fund so that we can make really informed decisions about funding proposals. So let me pause for any feedback, questions about this subcommittee process, what's working well, what we'd like to see different. Any questions for clarification?
Has anyone met outside of Omar and Talisa that met with us? Did anybody else meet? Okay, just wanted to make sure. I mean, if we missed an opportunity to be there, I just wanted to hopefully not put you on the spot too quickly, but just to get a little bit of a rundown of what happened. So seeing none. Okay, so we look forward to seeing invites then soon of these committee meetings that will be happening. I think, and forgive me, Katie, if I'm putting you in the hot seat, but I think we agree that we'd like to attend whenever a committee is hosting an opportunity to chat. We'd love to be invited, not to necessarily be involved and lead anything, just so that we have an awareness of what is happening. Okay, so just a request from your chair and your vice chair as you all develop. And David, I need to give you a call. So we'll work on setting ours up too. So I'm holding myself also accountable.
Sounds good.
Phenomenal. Thank you. The hope is that the investment now of time learning will also yield to a really effective grant making process and to build that knowledge like year over year. Again, just trying to be really intentional and aligned with what are the priorities of the fund, what are the needs of the counties, where do we have gaps and where can we build on strengths. So with all of that, let's get right into the heart of our discussion today, which is talking about the disbursement of funds, which is why we're all gathered here. So thank you for making this a flow chart. The visual learners in the house, very excited. So the big broad strokes are that we're envisioning two different pathways for entities to request funding from the CRRF. One is the community grant system. So that's what's open to nonprofit entities or for-profit entities that want to serve the impacted communities as defined by zip code, or low-income communities as defined by the Qualified Census Tracts information, in a way that aligns with some of these long-term strategies for the fund. So that is where our commission has right now the most clearly defined role of helping inform those funding decisions. So going through the steps, first things first is that we are going to finalize the way the application is written, what questions we're asking for, and what the parameters are about kind of what can get funded and how much and for how long. That's what we're going to talk about today. That'll result in a finalized application, which will then get dispersed out to the community. Folks will fill out those applications. We're going to try to host some technical assistance sessions also to equip people with knowledge and skills and resources about how to navigate that grant application process. But all of those applications will come into the county team. And the first layer review is by county folks to assess the applications for completeness and to score them along a rubric. These only applications that have reached a certain minimum score will come up to us at the commission for review there, right? We want to make sure folks follow the directions, submitted all the paperwork, meet the technical eligibility criteria. So the first level of screening happens with county folks, then it comes to our commission where we're going to review the applications. I think the goal here is also for the various subcommittees to really focus on reviewing applications that touch those areas so that we're meeting kind of knowledge and requests for funding in the same with the same group of people. And we're going to make recommendations back to the county about which proposals we think merit funding. From there, there's another layer of administrative county review, the county administrative office and the county executive. And then the grant making actually happens from the county. So that's the steps, right? It goes to county folks, then it comes to us as the commission. We make recommendations back to the county, and the county works on executing all of those documents. Does that feel clear? Any questions about sort of the steps of that process?
You did that really well, Katie. Thank you. That was great. I don't have any questions. Anybody? I mean, I've seen this obviously earlier than others too. So certainly those that are seeing this for the first time, please don't be shy with any questions.
Just as a note, when you get to the grants review portion, what that is that it winds up being a dual activity of one side, which is the county executive side or the executive side of the government, with the grants review committee of the county administrative officer, the county attorney, the office of budget and director, and a senior advisor within the thing. And then upon that, it goes over to the county council for what we call a negative approval process, in which it's submitted by saying, here are the grants that are recommended for approval. If we don't hear from you in 14 days, we're going to consider them moving forward.
Thank you so much, Matt. And Wendy, I think that addresses exactly your question. I mean, the county employees who are part of the grants team and part of these administrative offices with responsibilities for managing the actual like granting process.
As you're sitting here, Ashley and Gabby are big portions of the actual grants team within the things coming through into the county, particularly with the CRF fund itself. When it gets to, it's still I'm sitting over as the grants review administrator. So eventually, I'm the one who basically sends forward and says, here we recommend these to the group I just talked about on the executive side. And from there, once we get the approvals from them, I basically, with the help of Gabby and Ashley, prepare the 14-day notice and send it forward to the county council.
Thank you so much, Matt. So good system of checks and balances, right? In terms of kind of technical eligibility, alignment with the priorities, and then making sure that all the T's are crossed and I's dotted when it comes to the grant making process and parameters. Mm-hmm. Any other questions about the process? Please feel free to use the chat or just come off mute.
Okay. I may have missed this, but what is the scoring threshold?
It is, I believe it's 70 points out of 100. Is that, it's articulated in one of the attachments. I'm going to pull it up on my other screen.
You're correct, Katie. It's 70 out of 100.
And points are assigned on things about sort of like, did you complete all of the sections, right? Did you attach all of the financial statements that you need? Is your budget aligned to the limitations that are done as part of the process? Did your answers, make sense and answer the questions that were asked? Yeah. Thank you. Great question.
As far as the applications and when they're due, is it rolling or is it only for is there like an open season and then it's closed? Or because I know we're supposed to give recommendations to the executive once a year, right? But yeah, is it rolling through or just for, say, from January through March?
I'm going to look to our grants team. Thank you.
So right now, what we've discussed is having applications not on a rolling basis. We would open it once, potentially twice a year. That hasn't been completely decided as of yet. And I know we've had several discussions regarding exactly what you're saying, Omar, the time frame for when recommendations are meant to be made up to the county executive. So once we have all of the input from the CRRC on the funding program as we've laid it out, we'll figure out when that will be released.
But to Omar's point in general, I wouldn't consider this the only bullet in your gun. That's what I want you guys to do is develop other programs, other ways, other things for the funding. You know, a community grants program may be one thing, but there may be other things that you bring forward as recommendations through your subcommittees, and that's what we also bring forward and like to see. You know, as I've said, I don't think one size is going to fit all here with everything you guys are going to come up with.
Okay.
Thank you so much. We've had a lot of conversations about sort of like big ideas and then thinking, let's get through one round of one grant application first and learn from that and then start opening it up. Any other questions, feedback?
I have a question. I think I was talking to Ashley maybe last week or two. Do we have defined outcomes of what we're looking for in a grant? Like numbers served, impact, if it was like workforce development, the number of jobs, at what salary? Are there different benchmarks for different types of grants that are received?
What a fantastic question. So what I know we talked about as a small group, Decoya, me, Gabby, Matt, Ashley, was really taking this stage of doing the first round of applications as a way of learning what already exists and how do we not make things harder by coming up with data points that maybe aren't aligned to other funding sources and how they're counting success, or without looking at some of the research about the best ways to measure impact. So as of this point in time, we're definitely looking at number of residents served, number of households served, and the alignment of the activities toward the priority funding area, and the sort of the practicalities of, is this an agency that has experience delivering this type of service or working with this particular community? You know, are they demonstrating the capability to manage this fund? Is the budget well aligned to the outcomes that they're proposing? But we really want to learn from the ways that applicants propose measuring their success, sort of trusting in the community's knowledge about what is the best way of measuring that. And then potentially for future rounds, being able to look at outcome measures that are well aligned to what's already working well, and some of also what's already being accepted in the field. We talked a lot about making sure that this application process was going to be accessible to folks who maybe haven't ever written a grant before, right? Or who are in communities where this sort of way of getting funding is not, it just isn't something that there's a lot of opportunity for. And so not wanting to put on so many hurdles to jump or data collection requirements that it was going to end up making it not actually be accessible to the communities that we want to leverage the funding.
Sure. I definitely get that. So thank you. So are we going to ask them, how are you going to measure your success? Is that part of the application?
Yes, I'm so glad you're asking. So in the attachments for this meeting were the revisions to the proposed application form for the community grants funding. So we went through and really looked at being able to ask the questions in a way that we thought would explain the organization's capacity, their alignment to the priorities, you know, getting specific about which communities are you looking to provide services to and why, articulating your performance measures and your project goals, right? So aside from just counting how many people are you serving, what else are you proposing as measures of success? And using a little bit the SMART goals framework for folks who maybe this sort of performance management is not part of their everyday. So pointing to a pretty accessible and a guide where, like, if you Google SMART goals, you can find a bunch of YouTube videos explaining what a SMART goal is, so that it's a way for folks to learn how to do that outcome measurement if they haven't been working on it before. But also, just practically, if you're already a nonprofit and you have to report on data 3 different ways to your other 3 funding sources, hopefully you're pitching the same measurement tools so you don't have to rebuild new infrastructure for data collection.
Sure. So clearly I didn't read it, so I have it up now on my phone. So I apologize. My other quick question is there a dollar maximum that someone can ask for?
Oh, yes. Is there, I think if we skip the next slide and go to the next one, I think we have the sort of broad strokes. Yeah, can you go one more slide?
And can you tap it to make it a little bit bigger? If someone says 200,000 max.
Yes. So that we did a minimum of 25 and a maximum of 2,000. And actually, can you tap forward just to the next slide? I think we did the sort of 4 or 5 big parameters on the next slide. There we go, that one. Yes, fantastic. If you could zoom that in. Thank you for making all our technical dreams come true. So the pitch that we'd like to share with the commission is to think about in this first funding round, again, realizing that we might get 20 applications, we might get 250 applications. They might be, we don't know what's going to come through. And so how do we make a significant investment, but also approach this as a pilot process so that we can learn what we don't know? So the idea is, out of the total funding that's available, to look at dispersing about $2.5 million this year, which both is and isn't a lot of money, but it's a manageable size for the first round. That the grants would be 1-year grants, because managing multi-year grants, there's some technical questions about how that works. And again, we want to learn from getting through the process the first time. So these would be 1-year grants. That they can be for a project, a program, or operating costs, right? So you're allowed to pitch as a community agency, whether you're looking to do a new one-time thing, you're trying to enhance a program you have, you're trying to just fill a gap in your budget for sustainability, really trusting the community knows where funding is going to make the best impact. But two of the limitations in the way the budget's structured that are proposed are to ask for a 10% match, and that can either be a financial match or an in-kind match. So showing that an entity is not starting from scratch, that they have some investment that they're also making, but through the mechanism of having an in-kind investment, not preventing agencies that maybe cash is not their strongest asset. Maybe their strongest asset is people or relationships. And so being able to represent that as an in-kind match. And then the other piece is that within a budget, that the funds from this grant can't fund more than 50% of a staff position. Because what we don't want is for folks to use this funding to do 100% of a staff position and not necessarily have any mechanism for funding that in the future. And so that was the proposal, was to, instead of limiting how much money you could use towards staffing, it is instead to say it's about per position, not funding more than 50% of a position with this. So the goal for these highlights, and it's open for discussion. So if folks have feedback about it, this is the time. Please do voice that, of how do we balance getting the funding to agencies that need it, that fit the priorities, and also being fiscally responsible stewards of public money. So maybe from here, yeah, go for it.
I do have one more question. I see operating funds. Is equipment considered operating funds? Or can you use it for equipment?
I'm going to ask the grants team what the county rules are about that.
I would say from the case wise that it, as a part of a program or a project, we could entertain the thought, and we have done it in other places and other things and grants I've seen through my existence and time.
Great. So maybe. Love it.
Usually it's either a hard no or a maybe. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Once again, we're kind of in new territory here, not knowing exactly what the needs are out there and what the case is. I don't want to deliberately throw up barriers and make it so it's, I mean, you know, if it can be substantiated and this will be monitored, so everyone needs to know that in the background, so people will verify that things, you know, the cases and, you know, receipts and so forth. So as long as everything's that way and we dot the I's and cross the T's, it's just part of what, you know, part of trying to address the needs of the that have been unmet thus far, I guess.
Great, thank you.
I had a quick question. I see the 1-year grant term. Is that of the time of award, or is that calendar year? Is that county fiscal year?
Normally with these things, I would say it tries to run the year of the county's fiscal year and so forth of nature. I guess the concept as we were going into this was that, and I think the timeframes will be coming up here, is that you're going to be bringing these on and getting grant agreements and stuff like that. So you're going to be kind of entertaining very close to the beginning of the county's fiscal year of going out into to FY27 with this routine. However, with grant agreements, we can all have chats a little bit further down the road of if, you know, like I said, that we always have sometimes not renewal clause, but you know, extension clauses and things in there if something needs to, you know, peter over or go over. We understand in those situations, as long as we've stipulated that ahead of time in the grant. I would hate to get to the point where we're just cutting people off and telling them at the end of a period, nope, it's done, whatever the case is here, we're finished here. I would say that certain cases we have to get it encumbered, because that's what we call it within our group, where the money is locked down for that case, so that for financial statements purposes, it's already been accounted for, so we're not looking for it in that case, which is part of the process. When we process these grants going through the system wise, they should be encumbered and then drawn down upon, so it's sitting there and it's held until the moment when someone goes in and basically releases it or says the grant is done, and we move forward with that. But I think in the first round like this, we can structure the grant to be a little bit flexible, to have a little bit of an extension as we're going in here. But we're going to try to, for a 1-year grant, try to keep it in that 1-year realm of that nature. And we'll go, and as we get better at this and keep going forward, there's abilities and so forth, because these are not what we call general funds. They're not funds that revert at the end of every year and go back to our undesignated fund balance. These are more or less, you know, like we call a multi-year or a special fund that are there, you know, on an ongoing basis, like our capital and other grant programs. So the funds are there. So they're not like lost at the end of a year like some are.
Do you think on the on the application or whatever, we should say 1 to 2 year grant terms or 1 to 3 year? Only because this first year you are going to have like the start of July 1. And I'm thinking $250,000 is a lot to spend if in 1 year.
Yeah, for some it might not be. It depends upon their project when the case goes. I mean, that's kind of what they're going to, yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Perfect. I think the other thing that we thought of is like the goal is to make this money as flexible as it can be within parameters and to do multi-year grants. It's just working out the mechanism of how we're going to deal with what if someone's significantly underspent? What if they are not meeting the benchmark targets that were established in the grant application? Like how do we balance accountability and support with it? And frankly, we don't know yet how to do that, but we don't want to wait to release any funding while we figure that out. So knowing that, especially kind of right now with different funding sources being cut off, having the opportunity to get all the way through the proposal, review, recommendation, contracting, and then evaluation, right, process for 1-year grants, we'll learn so much over the next year that then hopefully the following year we can open it up for multi-year. That's the thinking, but these are really good questions. I also see in the chat, Wendy, thank you for bringing all this up. Can we talk about reimbursement versus upfront funding and what the options are there?
Well, I'm going to chime in into case-wise that having had the 30 years of doing grants, that winds up being that we have a sort of a smattering mixture throughout the county, depending upon, you know, the different grants and different styles in that case-wise. There can be instances where we basically we could do benchmarking. Like I said, it just becomes a question of when we actually begin to write these the agreements themselves, how we want to structure in the case wise. I've never been a proposal of giving someone all the money up front. I'm an OBF guy. It's just the nature of thing wise. However, we do understand that many organizations are, shall we say, living hand to mouth in the case to it, and can oftentimes put out a large thing in front, then wait for the county to reimburse as we go along here, as we go. So in that situation, I would say we could structure in the same way of being able to say that, if we come to a conclusion that perhaps 25%, whatever the case goes in here up front, or, as a part of this thing going through, I don't think there's a tremendous issue, but it just becomes on the backside how we do the monitoring, how we the follow up on the backside of this thing.
Yep, and I would also offer that, and I think you were kind of getting to the end of that. We could structure it so that we could have a checkpoint. If that's something that folks will feel comfortable seeing, that hey, the first half of the year we've been able to accomplish all of this, right? And all of that. So just wanting to make sure that folks understand, as you were getting ready to say and lead into, that that's also another option too, but also allows us as a commission to make sure that we're continuing to, have eyes on these folks that we've trusted to exercise these the way that we want. So to support the community. So just putting that out there too. Doesn't have to be all or nothing. It could be something in the middle there.
Mm-hmm. I have a question. Just given the years of grants experience, I guess I'm having a hard time understanding why we can't, has the county not done a multi-year grant before?
No, we have in this situation, ma'am. It just it comes a question of, do we, we starting that way brand new with a brand new program and so forth that nature. And I mean, do we want to start, at the and learn from where we are here, rather than throw 3-year grants, 2-year grants, 1-year grants? It becomes very, it becomes an interesting mix then of monitoring, comes a very interesting mix of administrative, and the same thing going through here of people applying. I just, as like I said, I'm just saying from the new standpoint, coming into a new grant program, and I think it was just almost like a training wheel or a baby step right here in the first one. And then, as we build going out, I'm with you. Like I said, let's see what we got out there.
I do have one more question. Is there the ability to renew? Not extend, not extension of it, but if someone got a $200,000, can they go for round 2?
So I think that is similarly, we've put this out as a first opportunity. I would make the rough assumption that agencies that are really comfortable writing grants are going to jump all over it, and agencies that maybe haven't written grants before may not. And so offering renewal feels like it's a way that it might have unintentional consequences of privileging agencies that are already really comfortable with grant making, which may or may not be the agencies that have historically experienced disinvestment, and so sort of the target of the dollars. It doesn't mean that in the future we couldn't say renewals are an option. I mean, I don't know. I don't think there's many agencies that say, no, I don't want to renew my grant. It feels like a lot of us would say absolutely, let's keep that renewal happening. And so it's just that we may want to think about that. One of the things, I think it's on the next slide, is really also focusing on technical assistance sessions to reach folks who may not be sure if they're eligible for this or if they could be a good match for it. So could we do renewals? Sure. Do we want to start with that is the question.
One thing from an administrative standpoint within the county is that when you go and you apply and go to grant, we basically have to be able to tell the grants review committee and the council how much is involved here. So if it's a renewal, it's going to have to be basically saying that there, for this period here, but then we're also going to we're telling them at that point in time that there's an ability, that we're thinking about this is going to be a part of it. It's all got to be laid out up front to the council and to the GRC at that point in time of this, this is how we're doing that at that point in time at the onset from this. Otherwise, it has to go 1 year at a time in that type of activity because of the approval process. It's dictated in the code.
That makes it sound like renewal really means multi-year grant, right? You pitch the plan up front. Right. So what I'm hearing strongly is multi-year grant is really important to the commission. And so how do we make a promise that we will figure out the mechanisms for multi-year granting and in the next round allow for that? I guess my question to fellow commissioners is, do you think that figuring out multi-year grants is so important that we should delay getting the first round of funding out until we figure it out? Or do you think we should do a 1 year funding round and then for the next round make sure that there's a multi-year option? Or a third thing that is a brilliant idea that's going to come up right now?
So I agree that this year, I think the intention should be making sure that whatever we've put out is well received and we have an opportunity to adjust before we really hit a cadence. Remember, you all, we have $13 million already sitting. So, you know, folks are waiting for this money. They're waiting for us to disperse. So I don't know that we need to delay anymore in starting that process. But I do agree that multi-year would be wonderful if we can kind of see the folks that we're going to be working with, and there's a trust that's been developed over the year. You know, they've shown performance. We have an opportunity to essentially meet the people that we are trusting with this money, right? And we get to check and make sure that they're doing everything that we're hoping that they're doing. And I think we can do and accomplish a lot of that in the first year, and then use that information to then answer those questions for the second year. And I don't know that we can promise even that the second year will be ready for multi-year. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. I would just be nervous to lock us in like that, just on the minutes, you know? But I think that we should be open to it. 100% agree with that. But I think the first year we need to tiptoe into this so that we're not backpedaling like some of the other commissions that I'm hearing are having trouble now. We want to try to do this right as much as possible when we go out.
Can I jump in really quick?
I'm sorry, Heather. John has Commissioner Schwartz has had his hand raised for quite a while.
Yeah.
So I wanted
okay.
to
So did I. No worries.
Get his question in. I'm sorry.
Thanks. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry about the hand raising. Go for it, John. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot to unpack here, and I won't go over all my specific concerns with the RFP right now. But just to, in regards to the multi-year grant process, I think a somewhat easy compromise would be setting clear parameters and guidelines in the RFP itself that while renewal is not guaranteed to even be considered for a renewal, you must meet certain parameters, as in you have succeeded in whatever we want to call it, 90 or 100% of your deliverables have been met. You have spent down 90, 95% or 100% of your funds as you promised. Just if you're making sure that the grantee has fulfilled what they said they were going to do, that's the only way that, in my opinion, and in my experience as running a nonprofit and receiving all these different grants, that's the only way that we've been considered. While it's not ever guaranteed with the funders, it's sort of kind of an understanding, as Katie mentioned, it is a bit of a privilege as an established organization, but the privilege only comes with hard work and putting your money where your mouth is. So I believe that once an organization has done that consistently, then they do deserve to be at the front of the line for a consideration for a renewal. Because as you know, Katie, the struggle, with nonprofits is we live and die by grants, and the anxiety that comes with the 1 year grants and not being able to offer someone, offering someone this really fantastic position for 1 year with all these benefits, not with the uncertainty that you're going to be able to continue that position the next year. And then with the unrealistic, sustainability, how are you going to sustain it? How are you going to sustain it? Well, we're going to sustain it with these funds. Let's not beat around it. I mean, that's the reality of it. You and we all have funding sources for going on 5 years now. And in that first RFP, how are you going to sustain it? And we said the things we were supposed to say. We're going to fundraise. We're going to go after other sources. We have this, we have in-kind and that. But the reality is that funding source is what we were banking on to continue that project. And if that funding source dries up, there's a real chance that that project is going to dry up as well. So again, I believe that setting clear guidelines, not promising a renewal, not promising multi-year grants, even though I would love to see a 2-year grant like MDH and BHA. But I understand the hesitation on the first year. But I think we can, again, just be clear in the beginning of what our expectations are to even be considered for a second year.
So John, if I can clarify what you're saying that when we put the RFP out for everyone this year, you're saying in there, mention or have a little note around what folks can anticipate going forward around a multi-year, that we should come up with a language for that? Is that what you're suggesting?
Correct. Under the first year, under where it says it's for 1 year, I would say under that is where you were to expand on that.
I could get with that. I could entertain that.
Is it okay if? Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Really
I see where
quick.
the hands are now. Go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, no worries. I agree with John. One thing too is organizations, keep in mind there's going to be a lot of good organizations out there that are not going to have the money to front this work, and it will impact their outcomes. Instead of spending time the first year figuring out how to do multi-year grants, I think the commission would be it would be beneficial for the commission to spend the first year deciding what community impact, defining community impact within each of the buckets that these funds can go to. I think it's going to take us some time to, sometimes you give the money, you think the outcomes will be XYZ, and there's something a little bit different. And we want to quantify where we can, but also uphold the overall impact of these funds to the communities. And I think it's going to take some time to define that. And I think better time spent defining that as a commission versus the multi-year grants would be my 2 cents.
Thank you so much. That really feels like the sort of the subcommittee framework that we're trying is the way to do that, is to have the subcommittees work on the definition of impact expectations. Yeah. What else? This is the time. Please, other thoughts about, is this possible or not possible? Yeah, John, go for it.
So before I get into some of my concerns about the RFP, I guess my question is regarding the RFP itself. What power exactly do we as the commission have? Are there certain parts of this RFP that are set in stone that we have no say over, or things like the 50% limit cap on salaries, making these funds available to private versus nonprofit organizations, the reimbursement versus a percentage of upfront funds? Where do we actually have do we talk about what the RFP looks like and then have a final vote to approve it, or do we have to vote on individual changes that a commissioner might suggest?
I mean, as far as I know, this is all up for discussion. That's why we're here. This is an opportunity for you to put your 2, 5, 20 cents in. Whatever you want to put in here, this is the time to do it. And then we have discussion, and then we'll vote. So yeah, absolutely. Share everything.
Okay. The first thing that stood out from me is the same with the opioid abatement funds. These funds are being made available to private for-profit companies. That's a non-starter with me. And our organization in 24, we voiced our concerns with the county about this, as did other advocates. Unfortunately, we didn't have a vote on, we could speak at the town halls and we can have our closed door meetings. But at the end of the day, the opioid abatement funds were made available to private for-profit companies. And I can say with direct experience that these companies that receive some of these funds, they just went after them because they were there. They didn't need them. These are companies that have, massive networks and provide billable services across multiple realms. And when you do this as long as we have, you know how precious these funding sources are. And for-profit businesses have a multitude of avenues of accessing capital that we do not. Small business loans, capital investors, venture capitalists, lines of credit. So that's a big one for me, is seeing if we can decide whether these are to be available to private companies or not. I personally don't support them being available to private companies, only strictly for CBOs that are 501c3s or a official registered charity with a strong track record. The second concern is the 50% cap on individual salaries. I went through all of our funding sources throughout the years, and I spoke with my mother about this because she's more the expert than I am. Maryland Department of Health, MDH, the Moore Office, the Opioid Operational Command Center, and the current funds that we personally receive from the opioid abatement funds from Baltimore County do not have this cap. United Way didn't have this cap. AIDS United didn't have this cap. CDC didn't have this cap. So out of all these funding sources that we've accessed throughout the years, we've never seen this before. So I personally don't agree with that cap across the board. I can understand for executive compensation or administrative costs, absolutely, no question. But for an individual salary, we're talking about lowering the barriers. And basically, when you're capping someone at a 50% salary, you're basically saying that it has to be an organization like ours who has that other 50% already that they can allocate. So, we can do a grant modification on a current funding source and think down the road, okay, if we're going to get this, we're going to get 50% of this person's salary, and I can do a grant modification over here, and I can redirect that and combine, whether it's a part-time position or a full-time position. Even if this is a 20-hour position, we can't fund the full 20-hour position out of these funds. So I looked at the 50% cap as, again, just an unnecessary barrier. We have so much flexibility in these funds. I'd hate to see another barrier put up to an organization or really the individuals. That's what it's going to hurt, because at the end of the day, these individual salaries, these are peers, these are social workers, these are outreach workers, these are people that are boots on the ground doing the work. You're not talking about massive salaries, you're talking $40,000, $50,000 a year with benefits. So again, that's just one of the, I'm strongly against the 50% cap on individual salaries. And lastly was just scrolling through the RFP, like somebody already mentioned, I didn't see any mention of possible upfront funds. This is strictly a reimbursement grant, which again limits folks. And we were in that position for years. Thankfully, the nonprofit gods have smiled on us over the years, and now we're in a position where we are comfortable. We don't have to have that anxiety quarter after quarter of seeing our bank account getting down low, and where we're going to have to start taking out lines of credit and credit cards and things like that, and going into personal debt just to keep our organizations going. So I strongly support. At a minimum, just like the opioid abatement funds, a quarter of the funds, 25% up front, especially if that's for a capital cost. Like we bought a van with our opioid abatement funds, and that was a $60,000 van. That's a huge hit for a small organization like ours. We would have never been able to do that without getting those quarter funds up front. And just like every other grant, you have to cross your T's and dot your I's, and that has to go to the grant managers. And we're not going to be able to proceed with that grant if we haven't gotten that first quarter, approved by our auditors to begin with. So there's a lot of eyes on that money already, that first 25%. So I would suggest adding that you can add it however you want under certain circumstances, on per parameters, however you want to word it. But I would love to see 25% of these funds made up front. And personally, the last thing is I love the fact that you cap this at organizations with $1 million operating budget or less, because historically, small CBOs like ours have been butted up against these massive conglomerates like Hopkins and GBMC and Shepherd Pratt that have tens or hundreds of millions of dollars in their coffers. So that is a very good thing. Like you're trying to get this money to the right people, and I really respect that.
I think we could. I think we could work with what John is talking about here, with the 25% upfront type of thing. For as we're talking about, like we were saying, it could be structured. We just need to work that into, this is what is available as case wise. I understand who and what we're trying to reach, and it's not falling on any deaf ears, John. I understand what the nature is in that nature. And you're right. It all comes about following up and making sure that the I's are dotted and T's are crossed as soon as it comes across, and making sure it's something stipulated in the agreement with them, that they are aware that, if you want the next, as we continue to move forward, we got to make sure that we're, hitting the milestones as we're going along here. So I don't think that particular piece is any sort of non-starter that can't be worked out. As for one of the other aspects with you did make an interesting question or point there, that you wouldn't have too much of an issue if we basically said that 50% rule, only applied like to basically executive salary and admin type of routines, basically allowing the program individuals, people who got where the metal's hitting the meat there of work, case wise, could be potentially funded and that type of thing. That's a fair. I think it's a fair compromise on what we're talking about in our thought process.
And historically, the reason I mentioned that is because, we try to operate with the highest level of integrity. We're a family organization. My mother is our only executive compensation, and she's probably the lowest paid executive director in the state for a nonprofit of our size. And when you look at the 990s on some of the 501s that have received funding from the county throughout the years, it is like physically just like, it angers me. It's disgusting seeing the level of multi six-figure compensation for some of these organizations. So look, people have the right to earn what they're going to earn. I can't stop that. But I do believe that, we have the ability to pull that back a little bit, and to, tighten the reins on some of these organizations who have, for lack of a better word, have given their executives very cushy compensation packages over the years. So that's really where that comes from. It's just from years of reading 990s. Yeah.
I can respect it, John. Thank you so much for all of that background and history. I've never worked at a nonprofit, so you and Katie are kind of like my go-tos. So I'll appreciate all of that insight and respect it. Again, I just want to clarify so I have a good understanding of what you're saying. So you said you weren't a fan of having private for-profit companies, but hearing that you were, excited about the fact that we had put a limitation on those to participate, and asking for the money, does that cover you, or would you want us to really also have this conversation about not including private companies? And the only reason why I'm saying that is because obviously there's going to be people who are very small, right, businesses in the for-profit arena that still need some help, right? They're not nonprofit, but they're still doing good work. And I would hate to, not give them an opportunity just because they've chosen to go the private route versus the nonprofit. So that would be my only rebuttal, but I would love to have more conversation about it because I just want to understand your stance.
Well, as I said, really it comes down to the available funding avenues to for-profit businesses. They have availability for multiple loans that we don't have availability. They have small business loans. They have lines of credit. They have access to higher limit credit cards. It's difficult for a nonprofit, especially a new nonprofit that doesn't have established credit, or the executive director or whoever's going to be applying for that credit card doesn't have excellent credit. So, and just how finite and how limited especially these low barrier funds for nonprofits. Look, there are, like Heather knows, and most of us know in here, there are oceans of money available to nonprofits, but they come with a tremendous amount of strings attached. And a lot of them have high barriers. Just the application process itself often is a non-starter for a lot of nonprofits who just aren't familiar with the process and don't have the patience or the skill to complete these. So while I do, as a former small business owner and I'm still an independent contractor, so I absolutely understand that. I get that there's for-profit businesses that are actually out there doing good work. But at the end of the day, this money it's blood money, just like the opioid settlement money. People suffered, for the reason why these funds exist is to, again, we're trying to right the wrongs of the war on drugs. And I would just hate to see these funds go to some of the organizations and companies that I've seen the opioid settlement funds go to. When I, again, see how their businesses are ran, the potential harm that they cause to the vulnerable community, whether it's addiction, homelessness, substance use treatment, mental health care, recovery housing. There's a lot of bad actors in that realm. I've been a part of a lot of industries in my life, and I'm from, I grew up in the streets of Baltimore. It's a substance use disorder and mental health care in particular are just, it's not a lot of integrity there in the for-profit businesses. So I just want to be very careful that we are making sure that the people who truly need this money, who have relatively no other or very limited other sources, are the ones that have access to it. That's really where this comes from.
Yep, I respect it. Might slightly disagree with you a little bit, just because I know people that are running small businesses that are also facing other barriers that is not allowing them to get to those other streams that are available for for-profit companies. So there's other dynamics there. So that's why this money still will be valuable to them, so they can still do this work. But I hear absolutely what you're saying. I just, I'd like other people to chime in. I don't want John and I to be the ones to, offer, sides of this coin. But what do you all think?
Can I ask a quick question?
Oh, go ahead, Heather.
I'm sorry, hon. I'm just trying to find out where this $1 million cap is, $1 million organizational budget cap. Is it in the request?
So Heather, what I think you're referencing is if it's not necessarily a cap, it's saying that if an organization has an over $1 million operating budget, then they will also have to subcontract with smaller organizations and show that they are subcontracting with smaller organizations.
Okay. That's asking a lot because $1 million budget really isn't that much. The reason I bring this up, and John, I do agree with a lot of what you said, but considering the news in homelessness that dropped today, homeless services is getting, I'm just using this as an example. HUD is going to be cutting 70% of our funding away from housing and homelessness, permanent supportive housing. So organizations that are doing that work that might want to come forward for some of these funds will have more than $1 million operating budget. I guess the proof that they're going to work with smaller organizations, is that through MOU? Is that what we said? And then one suggestion, I also put language in the chat about how homelessness is described in the applications. We revised that language. And then the final thing, to the point about for-profit entities, maybe instead of saying no for-profit entities, maybe it's how we describe what kinds of for-profit entities we don't want to apply, like for-profit entities that charge the participants for services or make money off of the people or their insurance for, their bottom line. Maybe we define it that way to keep those bad actors out.
One of the things that first, I love the discussion. This is exactly what the point of the commission is, and I hope especially ex officio members, I hope we're all taking notes so that we can come back around, right? It sounds like now that everybody has looked at we had an original RFP, and then Gabby and Matt and Decoy and I looked and asked questions and made updates to sort of how things were written. And now it's coming to the full group. So we can feedback by email, a edited version, questions you want to ask, this is the right time to hammer in on all these different points and hopefully quickly. So just the ask is definitely there. If you're reading this and thinking, I would change the way that's being asked, or I have a question about this, please follow up in writing. But the other piece is the quality of application writing and the use of our subcommittees and their expertise, I think, is going to help us weed out a lot of applications that aren't really aligned to the priorities. Because defining something, I mean, honestly, like our nonprofit, we have training programs where we charge people to go through training. It's part of our diversified revenue stream. And I do know privately incorporated organizations, for-profit organizations that do phenomenal work, right? So trying to put in the application limits around who is or isn't eligible is one way of controlling who becomes eligible for funding. But a whole different way is really evaluating the applications themselves, right? Of like, does this seem reasonable? Is the budget that's being proposed aligned appropriately to the way we want programming and services to run? So I don't want to discount the importance of the review process, our careful review process, versus trying to make so many restrictions on the front end that some agencies will be like, I don't even know. I'm not even, do you know what I mean? I'm not even sure if I apply. Because for sure, agencies that would like this money will find a way to apply and couch it however they need to. Yeah. Any other things we haven't talked about yet from anyone else on the call? Like questions, scenarios? I'm especially interested in hearing from, because I know some of us work in a lot of human services. So I'm really thinking about workforce development, like, and the education world, some of the other priorities, entrepreneurship, professional development. Anyone who's got experiences in those areas and how these criteria match up with your industry standards?
Hey everyone. So I do have expertise. I think the highlighted for discussion, everything underneath there seems about right. I just want to bring in that defining small businesses maybe as a micro business, and we can ask Dude how they define micro business. Maybe help with having for-profits apply. I'm thinking about Reisterstown, CDC, their Main Street, having those businesses that are on Main Street apply. Maybe maybe for a facade or something, and that will be through another agency, of course. But I truly believe small businesses will take advantage of this opportunity because they are turned away from traditional banking.
Anything else, anyone? Because I think where we're gonna, and I don't know, Katie, how we move forward with this after tonight, but I love that we've had so much discussion about everything, but we do need to get to a point where we have to finalize things, guys. So, I don't know how we want to manage this. We want to continue to have conversation to get, things percolating for everybody. And then, maybe over the next week, we say, hey, there's a deadline for us to vote on whatever, and we'll work with Ashley to sort of set up some sort of email where you all can, she can check the box that she's received your vote or whatever. I don't know what that looks like completely off the top of my head, but I don't want to pause the conversation here or feel like those that are not quite sure have to make a decision today without having time to digest this. Your chair and vice chair have seen this already, so we're a little bit more, versed in all of this. And I know this is a lot of information to disseminate to you all tonight that may or may not be familiar. So happy to continue conversation and then set something up where we can get everyone's sort of final decision on specifically the highlights of our discussion, right? Because those are going to be the items that we need to make sure that we define the way we want to define, and that we capture it appropriately in the systems, because we'll have to go back and obviously update the documents as well. Okay, does that sound fair to everyone? We just continue the conversation, and then in a week or so, we'll collect everyone's sort of final opinion on these items? Okay. All right. Can I make a suggestion? I know we hopped down to this because there was a question that came up. Can we hop back a little bit just to make sure that we're covering, that we got through everything that we wanted to? Ashley, I'm sorry. Okay. Is this where we were?
I think
here we were.
Yeah, and then the next slide is about the whole other pathway of ways proposals come in. So all of our discussion, thank you so much, Decoya. All of our discussion has been about the community grants, and to put a fine point on it, could we establish next Friday, the 21st, as the deadline for submitting written feedback about the attachment of the application question? So if you're like, I think this question is no good, I think this parameter doesn't make sense, I would recommend this change to language. If everybody can submit that, and who should that go back to? Gabby, Ashley?
You can send it back to me, and then I'll gather the feedback, put it together, and then present it to Matt and Gabby, and we'll finalize everything from there.
Awesome. Thank you. I just think seeing it in writing, sort of exactly at the point of where the question is on the application would be helpful. Thank you, Ashley, for collecting that. So aside from all these community, for-profit, nonprofit, microbusiness, limited, not limited pathways, there's a totally different pathway that also could access this money, and that comes from proposals that are generated within the county. And so actually, Ashley, would you be willing to walk us through what the current path is, and then what the recommendations are about having greater involvement from the commission?
Sure. So generally, the departments would create their proposals or create their initiatives, and then submit a decision memo, draft a decision memo, and submit it for approval to the CAO and CE for their review and approval. And then from there, it would go to the grants team or the grants committee to be reviewed and then funded from there.
Thank you so much. And so the question is, that path that exists right now doesn't have a lot of involvement from this commission, right? So we've got the fund that's available. Oh, go ahead. So the fund that's available, right? There's the monies that we can release through the community grants program. That's where the commission plays a really strong role in it. And then there's the county, the way the proposals from the county can be funded. And so the recommendation is that we create an opportunity for our commission to also review those county proposals. And the goal there is having some consistency in looking at what's being funded, how well it aligns to the priority. But also, let's say the county comes forward with, I'm just making this up, some really fantastic initiatives in the reentry and reintegration space. And we haven't seen any proposals for that on the community grant side. Great, now we know that both the priorities being addressed somewhere. Or let's say we get an absolute deluge of applications about mental health and harm reduction, both through county proposals and through community proposals. We don't want to kind of overfund one priority without understanding how the whole of the money is going out through these two pathways. So that's what's in the work, sort of the question of redeveloping the county pathway, is to have some involvement of this commission in that review process. What did I miss, friends?
Sounds good. You actually summed it up great. Thanks, Keith.
Okay. Commissioners, question for you all on that. And just big thanks to you, Ashley, for sort of highlighting this as another way of making sure there's good alignment and intentionality.
Do you all agree with that? Are you okay with us fighting for that and making sure that we are the point of, of review?
I think I'm speaking from a purely shall we say, fairness point of view, that in the sense wise that you guys should have, I mean, you're the commissioners of what we're doing here. We should work hand in hand with you in this. If it, there has to be some discussion between the county and things of that nature. I mean, in the end, like, I know how the structure is written, but the last thing anybody wants in the world is to have you guys on one side and the county being on the other thing. We'd all, let's walk it hand in hand. It makes perfect sense here, guys, but of that you guys have, that you guys are informed of this. I'd hate to be sitting on one of these meetings and all of a sudden someone says, "Hey, Matt, it sounds like some of your people just did this," and no one even bothered telling us or saying anything to us. I don't want to be sitting on this meeting during that. I'm sure James doesn't, Gabby or Ashley wants to be on the end of that either. So, let's figure out a way that there's some sort of definitely communication in between this of something of a decision memo coming forward that you guys are aware of, and you guys have some sort of, hey, these are our opinions about this and what the, what the, our reservations or why we support NIATA as we're going into this.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate that. Okay. All right. Want to keep going, Katie?
That feels good to me. I think the huge chunk of this meeting was exactly discussing could you slide back to there we go, the application review process. So we mentioned this at the top, right? Applications come in, they're first assessed by the grants review committee inside the county government for completeness and scored. Then we look at the applications that have scored over 70 and make recommendations for what goes forward. And then could we slide to, I think, my guess it's the second to last slide. It's the one about technical assistance. So we talked a lot about really making sure that folks in the communities we want to receive this funding know that this is even an option and have a lot of support in filling out an application, making a project plan, creating a budget. Maybe they this will be, a much larger sum of money than you've gotten previously, whether you're a micro business or a nonprofit. And so do you have the infrastructure, just like the basic infrastructure, accounting, administrative wise, to handle that? So thank you so much, Ashley and team, for reaching out already to Maryland nonprofits and the Maryland Small Business Development Center. So really looking at what agencies already exist in the county or the state that provide that sort of technical assistance to nonprofits and small businesses, and how do we, when we do technical assistance sessions to advertise this opportunity in the communities, also link them with resources that are free, right, that are already trying to help strengthen our local economies, so that if they have infrastructure development needs, that you can get support with it there. So again, we don't want anyone to be prevented from getting funded for a great idea because they were like, I'm not sure how to answer this question, or I don't know, we don't have a strategic plan, or what is an in-kind, what does it mean to show an in-kind match? Like, that language may not be familiar. And so how do we do as much support on the front end as possible so that folks who've got a great idea and maybe this is a new adventure can get their application to the point where we even get to see it. So if anyone has other connections, either statewide or county level connections for like small business, nonprofit development, technical assistance, or training agencies, please let us know, because we want to invite those as resource partners when we are advertising the grant opportunity.
I have a question. When we release the grant application, will there be like a technical meeting? Because often there's times that, like you put it out for 2 weeks and then you come together and you have questions asked.
I would be thinking we should do this without a doubt. Ashley, you can answer that, but I'm yeah.
And I think the goal is to do more than what's typically done. Usually, right, it's like the RFP is released, here's the pre-bid meeting where you can come and ask your questions, but you have to even know where to find the announcement about the RFP. So we want to do a lot more showing up in community spaces to let folks know about the RFP even before that pre-bid meeting as part of the technical process. But yes, I think a Q&A is standard.
Yep. Totally agree. And I like how you guys have this on the thing about the technical. Isn't there Baltimore County Small Business Development Center? Or is it just the state of Maryland?
There might be multiple. And we know that the Maryland Small Business Development Center does exist, but I don't know.
I have to see sometimes with the Small Business Development Center over, it used to be the Baltimore Chamber of Commerce. Case wise, I have to see if it's still up and running. They were challenged over the past year or two, so they may not be in the best shape. So.
Wonderful. Well, the last thing on our agenda. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Katie. I'm sorry. One more question. With the community technical preparedness piece, and we did talk about resources, obviously, but we are going to also leverage our internal county resources too, right? Like Matt, you and your team, you guys are helping us out too, right? With these events, if we have them, we're going to be able to leverage you guys a little bit too, right?
Yep, Ashley, and if you need me to come and sit there and you know, for the like I said, like grants process and that kind of thing, and how it goes through, absolutely, it's kind of what we're here for. I want this thing to be successful.
That's what I was hoping you'd say. Right, that's what I was hoping you'd say, and Gabby, you too, I'd imagine. So, okay, that's wonderful. And Katie, I guess we need to start figuring out when, you know, and everybody. I was just saying Katie because we talk a little bit outside of this group a little bit, but get some ideas around when we want to have these sessions and where we want to have these sessions. Certainly now there's, I don't know, 8 or 9 districts, right? So I'm not suggesting that we do one in every district, but maybe just kind of be able to get 3 or 4 in a couple of regions maybe, and we can have maybe 3 of these. Again, it's just right off the top of my head, I haven't had any conversations with any of you, so just throwing things out here. But we want to make sure that we at least give every part of the state an opportunity to really hear about all this, okay? Not state, sorry, county. Make sense, everyone?
Beautiful.
Okay.
So action item homework. Take a look at the RFP document that was attached. You know, track changes, edit, totally rewrite it. However, whatever feedback you want to give in writing about the way we're asking questions and assessing eligibility. We also heard a lot about some of the structures, upfront costs, matching costs, executive staff limit percentages, and understanding that we really need to figure out multi-year funding, or at least give a heads up to agencies that would like to know that we're considering the opportunity for that, so they don't feel like it's a waste to apply just for 1 year. And then the goal, right, it would be to get the application process, RFP all finalized. We'll probably need to do a vote by email. I'm going to guess in December, so that it can be actually launched in January, which means that January is the time where any community meetings, newsletters, like how are we going to get the word out to the communities that we want to apply about this opportunity? And that's going to involve local networks too. So near term is the RFP, and then starting in the new year is really thinking about promotion. For the good of the order, any other thoughts, feelings, concerns, questions, congratulations, announcements?
You're funny.
I just wanted to say that Harford County has done really well with creating community engagement with their funds, with some of their town hall meetings. I'm friends with Marcus, who he also sits on their opioid settlement fund commission, and you know they've had a lot of success through social media and getting people to come out and come to some of these town halls. So you might want to just take a look and follow some of the stuff they've been doing. They're in some Facebook groups and they're all over different forms of social media. So when we do start thinking about town halls and how we get people. Their commission has done a really good job of community engagement.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yep. That's beautiful. That's what we want to hear. We want to hear what our colleagues are also doing so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We're coming right on in. If you thought this was great, please drop us an email and say, this worked really well. If you were like, this meeting was a disaster, we should have done it a totally different way, please drop us an email and let us know. We are working together to figure out how to launch this wonderful opportunity. So thank you all so much for your time and thoughtfulness and effort, and deep thinkers who didn't say anything at this meeting, but we know you're deep thinking. Please reach out to either one of us at any time just to express. We want to make sure that we all feel confident and clear so that we can be good stewards into our communities and make sure that all the right folks get lots of money out of this fund. That's right here. Can we have a motion to adjourn? Somebody bring us home.
Chair, we just had the county funding proposals to discuss. We could also push it off to the next meeting if that makes sense, because I do understand that we have hit 7:31.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry. That's my error. Yes, if we could maybe ask for folks to review, because we're not reviewing the actual proposals yet, right? Those will be in January.
Correct.
This is just, okay.
Yeah, I already hear that it looks like a few people have a hard stop, so it's completely up to you. We can talk about it next meeting, or I could run through it.
Would it be possible to send an email that runs through, like, whatever you would say, to send it by email? Is that possible?
Yeah, absolutely.
That might be a way to get the information quickly, but not hold the meeting. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Thank you. I'm so sorry for not following our agenda at all. Okay. Take care, everyone. See you at the next meeting, and we'll be in touch by email.
Good night.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Everyone, thank you.